If you can get that damn whistle out of your head after you play this game, congratulations. If you had gotten it out of your head and I just reminded you of it, I'm very sorry. Let's dive in. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my review of The Last of Us Part 2, the highly anticipated sequel to The Last of Us Part 1. This is a game that I was very excited to play, as I'm sure a lot of you were. And before I say even another word, there are going to be spoilers in this review. You have been warned. So without further ado, here we go. This game takes place a few years after the events of the first one. Ellie and Joel are living in the settlement in Jackson, Wyoming, and things are going well over there. People are thriving. Ellie has a new girlfriend named Dina. Kids seem happy. Everyone seems fine. However, one day on a patrol run, Ellie runs into something incredibly horrific and witnesses something incredibly brutal in the process. It's happened to somebody she knows very personally, and she goes on a revenge quest as a result of it, and that leads her down a rabbit hole where she basically hunts down a lot of people in very brutal ways, making her question her own morality in the process, and you can see that it's starting to take a bit of a toll on her. That is the brief plot synopsis that I can give you without going into the spoilers, which I will in a second. But before I do, this is the fifth take of this review. I've already filmed this 4 different times, but I've not been happy with any of them because I came to a conclusion that I was still not done processing all my thoughts on it. A lot happens in this game. A lot of things that take place and a lot of things that need individual amounts of attention, of basically just trying to process each and every one of them and eventually put together the entire picture. Right out the gate though, I can say that the gameplay is extraordinary. I didn't have any major glitch while playing it. In fact, I can't think of any real glitches at all. I didn't have any issues. Whatever issues were there were of my own making. For one point in time, there's a rat king zombie thingy, and you were playing as Abby, and you're sort of trying to kill it. And that was my fault. I was moving the joystick like a fool, and the torch was flashing everywhere, and I wasn't pointing it in the direction where I needed to go, which is why I ended up dying 20 times in a row in absolutely hilarious and repetitive fashion, I might add. So, yeah, that was my only glitch, really. Aside from that, I didn't have any issue with the gaming. I didn't have any issues with frame rate. I didn't have any issues with rendering. I didn't have any issues with any of the visuals. This is an extraordinary feat. The people who worked at Naughty Dog, the hundreds of them who put in hours and hours of work over the last few months and years, all of them deserve a big round of applause. They have achieved something monumental here. The voice work, Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker, fantastic as Ellie and Joel once again. Ashley Johnson in this game I think is better than she is in the first game, which kind of makes sense because, she's a more adult character in this one, so I can completely understand that if, she's matured a lot more in the role. And we'll talk more about the Ellie's character in this game in a bit. Troy Baker as Joel, fantastic again. Laura Bailey as Abby, also really, really great. Fantastic character. Again, we will talk more about her in a minute. I have a lot to say. The score by Gustavo Santaolalla, who did the score for the first game, outstanding. I mean, there is a bar which he raised, and then I think he's taken it even further with this game, along with, Mac Quayle, that was his name. With him, they've taken the music to a whole other level, and I really loved the soundtrack to this game. I cannot wait to just tune out and listen to it after this review. All of those obvious things in this game, great. The stuff that you expect to be great, wonderful. The action, a lot better. Some of the combat stuff I thought was even more improved in this one. One of the things I really liked was the punching windows thing. Like, that was always an issue I had with it. Like, what if I have a quick getaway to make? Do I have to go around to the door? Like, what if they're shooting right there? And I was like, no, there's a window now. Just jump through that shit, or you throw a rock at it and it just breaks. Unless I missed that mechanic in the first game, that was an inclusion in the second game, so I like that. The user interface for the weapons and the upgrade stuff, a lot better in this game compared to the first one. In fact, I should just go ahead and say that on a technical, level, this game is just leaps and bounds above the first one. It's been 7 years. Technology comes a long way, and it clearly has. It's really the story where I think a lot of people are going to have some issues with, because in a lot of ways this game is an antithesis to The Last of Us Part 1. Whereas the first part dealt a lot with these characters who eventually learn to care for each other and have a father-daughter sort of bond created in the process, and eventually overcome all odds because of the closeness that they have found within each other. This game essentially is the opposite of that. It's about separation, it's about hate, and it's about cutting a lot of those ties and a lot of the things as a result of it that take place. If the first game was about doing things because we love the people we do, for example, Joel saving Ellie from the facility before they could make a cure, this game is basically about consequences and the fallout which you experience from it. And it establishes a gray area between the characters that we've known, as well as the ones that we've been fighting for a while now. When you're first introduced to this character, Abby, played by Laura Bailey, you're introduced to her as a villain. She meets Joel and Tommy in this one scene where she's being completely overrun by infected. They eventually bring her back to her camp where she's with other men and women. And when they get there, Joel seems to be a target that they've been looking for a while. And in a scene that I feel like was no doubt going to polarize a lot of gamers and eventually might be the make it or break it factor of this game, Joel gets brutally murdered by Abby with a golf club. Now, my approach to scenes like this, which are so viscerally violent and do something horrible to a character that we've known over the past game as a hero, is that when I play a level like this, my first immediate thought is it earned? Because is there a reason for doing this, or was it just for shock value? Lo and behold, there is actually a reason for it, and this is where I enter full spoiler mode beyond the massive spoiler that I just gave. Abby's dad was the operating doctor in the first game, who was trying to do the operation on Ellie when he got shot dead, and then Joel took Ellie out of the facility. So, yeah, that's a valid reason to do what you did. Because the game, like I said, is so good at establishing gray areas with these characters that it's almost making a case for like saying all these good people that you knew in the first one, they're capable of great damage. They're capable of doing things that go against the grain, that go against their character, which makes them imperfect people. Just because they're on this side doesn't mean that the other people are not bad. The game is making this commentary about how there's no such thing really as a good or bad. There's always a gray area that exists between people of this society. Which brings me back to the playability for a minute, because you're essentially playing two characters in this game. For half the game, you're playing Ellie. And then for half the game, you're playing Abby. Now, Abby has done something horrific. And immediately when you come across that idea, it's like, wait, what? I have to play Joel's murderer now? Seriously? I mean, come on. Joel is a flawed human being. But his death is still fucked up. It's very similar to how Ellie later on kills Owen and Mel, the two people that Abby knows best in the Wolves. And Mel is actually pregnant. And it sort of creates this thing. It's like, yeah, both of them did messed up things. Joel did some fucked up things to the ex-Fireflies who are now joined with the Wolves, like Abby. And Ellie did some fucked up things to them. And it sort of creates this circle of, yes, the actions that were committed by both parties is terrible. And yes, for each party, it's unforgivable to a degree. But does that warrant this horrific extreme reaction that just killed them in cold blood? No, that's not it either. We live in a world where we're always two extremes. There's either you are on this side or you're on this side. This game is sort of saying you don't have to be on sides. Everybody has flaws. You can work together. Yes, it's very easy to grasp, and yes, you're hoping that the characters in the game would grasp it faster, because revenge really gets you nowhere. But you have to understand that you're playing this with these characters in this game. They don't know this. You as the player are probably 5 steps ahead and like, here's the conclusion. This is what you're supposed to think. This is what the message of the game is. You know that. But these characters are so thick in the shit that they don't know it. They're still trying to figure it out. In fact, it takes a very extreme thing to happen for them to figure it out, which is the end of the game. Once they finally get to that point when Ellie and Abby are fighting in the water and Ellie's about to kill Abby, that's when you finally realize that Ellie's now coming to the conclusion that you as the gamer have already come to hours before, that this is not going to change anything. What's this going to get you? Joel's not coming back. He's still dead. That still happened. Abby, in her process of trying to probably redeem herself, because again, the game is not asking you to forgive her for what she did to Joel, but it's also asking you to be like, she's not just the killer of Joel. She is a lot more than that. And the game, with Joel's death in a way, because his name is ever so prominent in this, his death in a way sparks off these two characters finding a middle ground and realizing that they've made a lot of mistakes along the way. As she's protecting these two scars who are from another faction that the wolves are at war with, she eventually starts to care for them. She even gets very close with this kid named Lev, and they develop a bond which is very similar to Joel and Ellie's bond. And you see that parallel play out, and in a lot of ways you can tell that being with this kid, Abby is starting to realize what happened with Joel was messed up, and how Ellie was so affected by it. Because she's very protective of the kid all of a sudden, especially towards that ending, which I found to be extremely powerful. Now, that's not to say that everybody's gonna love the game because they get those themes and because they're on board with it. Absolutely not. I'm also not saying that the game does a stellar job of handling it perfectly. It doesn't. There are moments where it slips up and it gets way too lost in some of the action-packed imagery, and a couple of moments where other characters are introduced that you sort of do feel like it dwindles the message of the final game. But it backtracks. It always finds its way back. It finds its footing. It's like sometimes when you're doing something, when you're telling a story, you have your hand on the reins. Like, you know exactly how you're telling it, and you know the audience you're telling it to. But every once in a while, your hand will loosen a little bit, and you hope it doesn't. But every once in a while, if it happens, you're just like, all right, I gotta grab the reins really quickly. I gotta stabilize myself. And this story does that. It meanders a couple of times. It has some moments where it gets a little uneven, but it finds its footing again, and it resumes back on its course. And it doesn't change the fact that at the end, the result is still the same. Because this game is not going for a big conclusion. It's going for a human conclusion. Not everything has to be big guns, explosions, and, a stellar final climax with some awesome imagery. You do get an action sequence in the end. You get sort of a rescue sequence. Ellie does save these people from this horrifying gang of other rattlers, I believe they're called. And by the way, I have to say, Ellie taking them down was incredibly satisfying. It was such a great moment. I mean, I spent some time with that because I was doing a lot of stealth kills in the entire game, which were proving to be very nice for me. Like it took me a longer time, but it was so satisfying in the end. Oh man, and it was brutal. It was brutal. But it was also very, very satisfying. But just getting these thoughts together, getting these words together, it took me a while. It took me these number of takes because I was trying to figure out whether I was on board with some of the decisions of this game or not. It does make polarizing decisions. It does tend to divide you quite a bit. It's such a vastly different game from the first one. In a lot of ways, I haven't played a game this complex in a long, long time. The storytelling here is just insane. Like, this is magnificent. It's such a simple thing. The message is so simple. The themes are very easy to grasp, but they're done in such a compelling way and showing you the consequences of each character's actions to such an effective degree that you can't help but praise it. I'll give you another example. At one point in time, when you run into Tommy in the Seattle area after he's going out to get revenge for Joel, you're like, all right, he's taking down all these armies one by one, and you keep getting news that there's this guy, he's just taking out all our men one at a time. I mean, we're not standing a chance. And then at one point you're playing Abby, and you're on this bridge, and he has a sniper rifle, Tommy, and he's firing at you, and he's firing with such devastating impact, and he's taking shots in a way that more infected come after you, and you're sort of trapped, and then he kills one of Abby's best friends, Manny. When you're playing this entire thing, it's like, holy shit, Tommy's kind of a monster here. Like, what exactly is this game doing? At one point in time, you are with Ellie and you're playing the entire game, and you're with her and she's looking for Abby, and she's very close to finding Abby, and eventually Abby confronts her in this movie theater. And you're like, all right, this is it. You know, Ellie's gonna kick her ass. But then after you play the rest of the game with Abby for a while, and then you do revert back to Ellie. But when you're with Abby for a while and she gets to that theater again and she's confronting Ellie, the fight that breaks out, you're playing it from Abby's perspective, and she's trying to take down Ellie, who is ruthless and is trying to come after you and wants to kill you for good. And suddenly it makes you look at it and go, wow, Ellie's being kind of a villain here. This is so fundamentally messed up on so many levels. When it comes to the dark thoughts that we have as people, when it comes to terrible things that happen, our first instinct is normally one of violence. It's always the easiest approach to things. If anything bad's ever happened to you, like, you know, it had a lot of bad things that have happened to me, I won't lie to you. Sometimes my first approach was punch back. That's exactly how this game is. This game is looking at the first instinct that people have, which is to go straight for the violent reactions without considering what the ramifications of it could be or how it affects different people at different times. That's what makes the game so powerful for me. It also makes the game much more devastating for me. I won't lie to you, I cried a few times. When you get to certain moments, it definitely leaves you with teary eyes. Joel's death is extremely emotional. So is the ending, where you're in the final flashback and you're seeing Joel the night before he died, and they finally make some amends. Which, by the way, let's talk about Joel a little bit in this game, because even though he's not there that much, some of the scenes with him, in the flashbacks and some of the stuff you interact with, it's just so wonderfully done. The scene where he finally tells Ellie about what happened that night, about how he saved her because otherwise she was gonna die in the process of making a vaccine, and that completely devastates her. It's incredibly emotional, and it does make you feel for both these characters at this moment. I'm sorry if I ended up talking more about the themes of this game than I did anything else. I'm really sorry. I wanted to talk more about the gameplay itself. But I covered that. I mean, it's perfect. It's a really perfectly done game. I mean, it's just fantastic. I just realized I haven't even talked about Dina and Ellie's relationship in this. Oh man, that's quite well told as well. Also very naturally told. One of the things I saw going around online, which this is so stupid now, is like, oh, they're pushing this agenda on you. They didn't. They actually didn't push any agendas. They were very natural about it. These are two girls who like each other. They're a couple. That's it. That's how it should be. No. It's also coincidental that this came out during Pride Month. I was like, oh shit. It's a kind of a perfect way to celebrate that, I suppose. I don't know. But the story about Dina and how she was previously in a relationship with a guy named Jesse, and then he dies and she's pregnant with his baby, and then Ellie and Dina raise it, and then when Ellie goes out to find Abby again, she disappears to like come back to an empty house later on. Like Ellie just enters and there's nothing. That was tragic. It was a tragic love story. But I will talk about one other thing in the gameplay that I did really, really like, which was the guitar. I really like the fact that you could strum along to it sometimes. I liked the moment where I could just kind of create a tune while I was on it. Granted, it's probably going to become a meme in T-minus 5 seconds. Somebody's going to put some music over it, and then it'll be like, Ellie played that shit. It's fucking wild. But in all honesty, like, I like that. That was the one moment of peace the game has to offer. And eventually when you play it in the end, that one last tune, it's... Oh, man. This game has so many emotional moments that rock you to your core. One final thing I want to say before I give my rating, and I think I've tried my best to justify what I'm about to give it here. I understand a lot of people are very upset with this game. From what I can tell, like I said, I haven't really looked into the online chatter except for the critic scores. But from what I can tell, there are some people genuinely upset with this game. A friend of mine sent me a text saying he was not very happy with it. I actually understand. I get it. It's a game that leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It's not a pleasant experience at the very least, and it does make you as these characters do things you don't want to do, and it is definitely grotesque in that manner. But that is the point of the game. That is what the game is trying to showcase. And I understand if that doesn't work for everyone. So which is why I understand if my final rating doesn't apply to everyone's experiences of the game. But with that being said, and I say this with a deep breath, I'm going to give The Last of Us Part 2 a 10 out of 10. Why a 10 out of 10? Well, I think there is a certain beauty behind the madness approach to this game. And I think a lot of media sometimes tries to accomplish it, but isn't quite able to find the sweet spot in the middle in order to make it happen. I think this game does a wonderful job of it, and it addresses the flaws it has in its story in a very effective and emotionally wrenching way. And it did it perfectly, in my opinion. Guys, thank you very much as always for watching. I hope you liked this review. Sorry if I went too much in depth into what I thought of this game. I just feel like it's something that really needed to be discussed in details, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think of this review. I'm sure there's going to be some angry reactions to it, and if so, go right ahead. I want to hear from everybody. It's all right. Just like I said, there's no right opinion on this game. I get it if you didn't like it. I get it if you loved it. But yeah, just sound off in the comments below. Thank you very much as always for watching, guys, and may your survival be long and may your death be swift. Yeah, that seems like a good place to end it.